So AIDS has not presented major difficulties. Rather more sharp and perhaps more interesting has been the debate over abortion, a debate which has cropped up particularly in recent years and came to the fore at the 1994 UN Population Conference, which was held in Cairo. How has the Sharia coped with the question of abortion? Obviously, it's more or less as old as the human species itself. Nowadays, it presents itself in a new and rather intensified form. There's a lot of pressure on many societies and families to control birth rates. Also, medical procedures have made it a lot safer than it was in the past, when the operation was often almost as dangerous to the mother as it was to the fetus. Medieval Islamic law discusses abortion in some detail. All of the madhabs agreed that a fetus with a soul had exactly the same rights as any other human being, so that in Islamic law, a miscarried fetus with a soul has to be given a name, and it has to have the full funeral prayer over it, and it has to be given a normal Muslim burial in a proper graveyard. The question was, what defines an ensouled human being? And most of the jurists held that the moment of ensoulment, nafh ruh, which is the Quranic term, the breathing in of the spirit, when God breathes the soul into the child, takes place in the 16th week of pregnancy. And the usual proof text here is a hadith that runs, "Each one of you has his creation gathered in his mother's womb for 40 days. Then he becomes a clot for a like period. Then he becomes a piece of flesh. Then God sends the angel who breathes in the spirit." So to these jurists, it seemed clear that abortion before that age, before the 16th week of pregnancy, is actually halal, it's permissible, although it may not be performed if it endangers the life of the mother. The jurists compare abortion to violence, abortion to the crushing of a date stone. They say, if you crush a date stone, that's not the same as uprooting a palm tree. There's no moral equivalence. There's an exception in the Maliki jurists who say that the ensoulment deadline of 16 weeks can only be inferred from this hadith, but the issue is so fundamentally important that one needs more solid evidence, preferably something from the Quran, and as that's not forthcoming, abortion at any age must be prohibited entirely. There are secondary arguments in Islamic law over whether the abortion has to have the consent of both parents. Most jurists say yes, it does, but the Hanafis say, for instance, that a woman is entitled to abort a fetus without her husband's permission. Once ensoulment has taken place, an abortion is only permissible if the pregnancy endangers the mother's life. So that's the classical position. Number of books which you can look at, quite interesting ones on the subject, if you want to learn more. So medieval Islam has a fairly clear-cut set of answers on abortion. Basically, before the 16th week, it's fine. So why should it be a contemporary issue? Well, strangely, it has become the subject of a very bitter debate in the past 10 years or so. Interestingly, we find some ulama challenging the medieval tolerance of it and proposing its complete or almost complete prohibition. So at this UN conference in 1994 in Cairo, we saw the spectacle of the Vatican delegation working with many Muslim scholars in order to insert key clauses in the final declaration in order to safeguard, as they put it, the life of the unborn child. So it's strange that the classical position seems to have been overturned. What's happened is that although the classical arguments are still respected, the ulama are arguing. Did I tell you what ulama means? Probably not. Ulama means scholars, those who know, experts in law and doctrine. So the ulama say, yes, we accept and respect the classical arguments. However, times have changed. There is a danger that the easy availability of abortion will lead to Western-style promiscuity. There's also a suspicion that the Western countries are anxious at what they see as the Muslim baby boom and are supporting abortion in Muslim countries as part of a kind of conspiracy against the Muslim world. So interestingly enough, we find that in most Muslim countries, abortion is actually forbidden, and the anti-abortion legislation brought into places like Egypt by the former colonial powers ignore Islamic law on this respect in this respect. In Egypt, abortion is actually illegal, except in a few exceptions like rape or risks to the mother's health. A number of other things I had to say about abortion. Perhaps I'll skate over those.